Hello, good morning, everybody. Today, we are talking about our subject, effective oral communication. Today, the material of our subject is buyer and seller. This is our topic of discussion for the week. In this session, the explanation will divide it into several subtopics. The description include first, we are talking about definition, buyer and sellers. The second subtopic is type of seller and buyer. The third is social media as buyer and seller platform. And the last one is usual process as the buyer and seller. And we have exercise for you and sample conversation about seller and buyer. Okay, let me start for the first subtopic is the definition of buyer and seller. In this slide, we can see about definitions seller and buyer. The first definition about seller. A seller is an individual or party who exchange any good or service in return for payment. In other meaning, seller is an individual or party who writes and the option contract and collects the premium from the potential buyer. The two definition of buyer. The buyer is an individual or party which acquires something or someone who receives goods or service usage in exchange for money, for order, valuable consideration under a contract or sale. We have to know about definition from a seller and buyer. Well, we're going to the next slide. In the next slide, we are talking about type of seller and buyer. In the slide, we can now about type of seller and buyer. The first type is about seller. Type of seller is 1. Wholesalers, 2. Technical sellers, and 3. Internet sellers, and the last but not least is street seller. The 2 is type of buyer. The first is the individual buyer. The second is the strategic buyer. The third is the synergetic buyer. The fourth is the industry buyer. 5. The financial buyer. And the last but not least is the analytical buyer. So, we'll go in the next slide. In the next slide, we will explain about the social media as buyers and seller platform. Sometimes the seller and buyer use the social media from for the platform. Now, buyer and seller using the Facebook for social media marketing, using Google Plus for social media marketing, using Twitter for social media marketing, and using LinkedIn for social media marketing, and using YouTube for social media marketing. And now, any buyer and any seller use Instagram for social media marketing. And in this slide, in the next slide, we are talking about useful phrases as buyer and seller. The first useful phrases as a seller. 1. Are you looking for anything in particular? 2. You can say, what can I do for you? And the last but not least, If you be a seller, you can say, how may I help you? And the two is useful phrases as buyer. If we be a buyer, we can say, I'd like to buy uh, blank blank blank. Or we can say, could you help me please? And the last but not least, we can see, would you mind helping me or giving me a hand with this? Okay, after we know about the seller and buyer, about the definition, about the type, and about the useful phrases, in this session, I will give you exercise. But before that, I will give you conversation sample from seller and buyer. The conversation sample is, seller, sir, how may I help you? Buyer said, I'm looking for a pair of leather jacket. Seller said, what size do you wear? Buyer M. Seller, 7 for which brand? Buyer said, does the same size mean different things for different brands? It should be standard across all brands, right? Seller said, for few brands, the same size can mean slightly different fitting. Buyer said, is it? I thought otherwise. Anyway, I will size M optional, and because I want to buy the same brand, it shouldn't be a problem. Seller. Yes, it won't be a problem in your case. This section has new arrival and this has shoes on sale. Buyer said, the variety is far less here because I'm buying clothes for at least few years. I would like to buy something I like. I will favor new arrivals. Seller side. Most of the jacket on sale were picked up by buyers within a day of opening of the sale. That's why you find for less variety there. Why don't you try this one, sir? Buyer. No, this ones I'm looking for more edgy look. The ones with laces and predominantly plain texture. I like this one and let me try it. This is fits well. I will take this one in brown. Size M. Would you like to see blues and dresses as well? Buyer. No blues or dresses, but yes t-shirt. Do you sell t-shirt only in combo of three? Seller. We sell by pair as well. Here they are. Buyer. Okay, I will take those two pairs. Sellers. Anything else, sirs? Buyer. No thanks. Seller. I will get the billing done then. Buyer. Sure. For the example conversation, we can now about how to be a good seller and how to be a good buyer. In this slide, we have the exercise for you. The exercise is about the cast. The cast is a casually dressed woman walked into a luxury store. Then she walking to see the product inside. She planned to buy a bag to wear at a big event. However, somehow she felt that she was not being served by the shopkeeper, perhaps because he didn't ask the shopkeeper or the shopkeeper is busy with their job. If you are a buyer, what would you say or what will you do if you were in that position? Describe your answer and make a short conversation that show the situation. Thank you very much. And finally, after this explanation, you can be a good seller and a good buyer. Thank you very much.